or to find those solutions or to figure those out. But the new style is coming up, the new working parameters are coming up, the new approaches are coming up. So we have to be completely transformational and change. That's my own individual learning.
That is very interesting as well. I think that's very true. Nothing stops. Time never stops. People never stop for anything. And I think it's true. I think it's a harsh reality of the world we live in today.
Correct. It's not like a very philosophical talk or it's like a philanthropy, but the point is like today now people have got into a practice and saying, oh, why should we travel for a meeting? Let's do a Zoom meeting. Yeah. That's the biggest change. So we are finding solutions.
Yeah. We've shown such agility also during this time. I think we adapted 24 hours, 78 hours. I would just take a safe number and think 78 hours, businesses, people, humans, our relationships, everything, they just transformed and, we figured out this way. Correct. And I was telling our fellow panelists also, I think for this interview, ideally in a pre-COVID world, I would have had to travel to 5 different locations, meet all of you separately, and that would have at least costed me 5 days. And today, I think in 1 hour, we'll all be together. And I wouldn't have had the chance to get all of you together as well from 5 different locations. So I think today, it's a very good thing I have so many people together. And in one Zoom call, we're all, aligned and going to be talking about important things. Absolutely. We're just waiting for one more of our speaker, Mr. Ajay, to join in. In the meantime, Rashmi from Greytip has also joined us. Hi, Rashmi. So Rashmi today is here to quickly make my job easier when we start off the conference, and she's just going to take 5 minutes to set a context for us and introduce you to something very interesting. So Rashmi, good luck with that. And just 1 minute for Mr. Ajay to join us. If you give me a minute, I will just get in touch with him again. Okay. It's already 4 o'clock. And my team has given me a cue that now we are live on all our streaming platforms, and people have also started to join in. So I guess we should start off the conference, and Mr. Ajay will soon join us because there are people who have started to join us in now, and we are live. So first of all, Mr. Ganpati, you can also turn on your video now. We are live. And thank you very much, first of all of you for taking out the time and energy. Mr. Thakur is also here. That's great. We'll do a quick sound check with him first. Hi, Mr. Thakur. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us right on time. We are already live. We've had our introduction. So we will just go through ahead with the formal introductions now. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'm very glad that you all could take out the time and energy to be a part of this conference. I welcome you all to greytHR Presents SME Leadership Virtual Session today. And the idea is we talk about the digital shift in SME. So today I have a very special handpicked group of people for this panel. And the idea is to talk to them about the growing SME sector in India. I think with the advent of digitization and the promotion of Atmanirbhar and the Digital Bharat has laid out a lot of opportunities for small and medium scale businesses to rise up and help create a stable economy. And today, I think the idea is with these experts, we sit down and we decode how we actually do that, how the recovery curve is looking, how do we identify those tools that are required to restabilize the economy in a post-COVID world. And when I say economy, I mean the Indian economy. So without any further ado, please allow me to introduce all my superstar panelists for today. Mr. Manu Seth, ASSOCHAM Chairman, Jharkhand State and Environmental Development Council. Hi, Mr. Seth. Very welcome to you. Good evening. Mr. G.R. Ganpati, Chief Business and Strategy Officer for CredWatch. Hi, Mr. Ganpati. Good evening.
Hi, Tanya.
Mr. Kamal Kumar Kaushik, COO MSME at Microfinance. Hi, Mr. Kaushik.
Hi, thank you.
And Mr. Ajay Thakur, Head SME and Startup at BSC. Hi, sir.
Hi.
So, as you know, the context has been set. You know the discussion, what it is going to be around. So, as I've introduced Rashmi before, so Rashmi, I think you wanted to help me out with setting the context quickly. So if you could quickly go ahead and do that before we jump on to the discussion.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Tanya. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rashmi, and I'm here to give a quick demo on greytHR as a product, and also we'll be talking a little bit about how the times have changed. So let me just share my screen with all of you. Just a minute. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen here.
Yeah, we can.
Great. All right. Most modern businesses today need tools with the help of which they can track their employee lifecycle activities, simplify the work, and get deep insights with zero efforts. In other words, a simple HR system is a must for all organizations, right? So, Great HR is one such efficient tool which offers automatic and smart solutions which vanishes the concerns and makes your workplace a fun zone. Now you might be wondering, okay, fine, Rashmi, I get that, but what are you going to show us here? So here is the brief agenda about my quick demo, friends. So I'll be talking to you first about how important is SaaS HRMS today for all of us. And then I'll be talking a bit about what is Great HR and what makes it so unique, and what are the pricing plans, the reasonable prices that we offer to our customers, and who are our customers, and how can you explore our product. All right, so first let me start off with how important is this SaaS HRMS today, right? So as we all know, SaaS is simply defined as a cloud software, the software as a service, right? When you compare these SaaS products over our traditional on-premises, the advantages are lots, right? There could be easy installation, or we even talk about the accessibility today while all of us are working remotely, right? And not just that, we need all of this at a very cost effective price, right? Which offers superior data security, and it is flexible, and also it is open to integrations where we can perform multiple HR functions. So when we talk about all of this, the only one thing that comes to my mind is our SaaS product. Now, since we understand what is this SaaS and how important and relevant it could be for today's time, here I introduce greytHR, India's first ever fully integrated cloud-based HR and payroll software, which offers relevant and cost-effective software solutions. And its powerful automation options and cost-effective nature makes it a preferred choice of 9,000 brands all over the world. Also, it has gained the reputation of processing around 10 lakh payslips on regular basis. Now, if you ask me, okay, fine, Rashmi, but what greytHR offers us? So, like I said initially, greytHR helps you carry out the entire life cycle activities of your employee friends while in the organization through these various modules which are already there in greytHR. It could be your core HR functions, or leave and attendance management, or payroll processing, or even to have a better communication, we have this ESS portal, that is employee portal and mobile application, which will ensure all the tasks and the communications are done in a much more efficient manner. And also, due to pandemic today, many companies are ensuring their survival by various measures, right? It could be cost cutting, it could be salary deferments, to an extent that even government has started offering various relief measures where citizens can actually cope up with these tough times. So all of these are instantly incorporated in greytHR, and that's how we are trying to make it relevant to the times by providing hassle-free implementation, excellent support, and also the reliable and robust product. And also, here are the various pricing plans what we have for customers, which are quite reasonable. So depending on the organization's requirement, the leads or prospectors can go ahead with these options and make best out of our product. And if you ask me who are your customers, here we have our few of the happy customers, and here to put it on screen, the list is very small, but we have much more than these which are spread across all over the country. And now, after listening to me, I'm sure you're curious to explore greytHR. What is it all about? How actually it works? So please don't hesitate. Please visit our website www.greythr.com, where we offer a free trial of 30 days, wherein you can explore our product to the full extent and understand how actually it works and what are the features it has got within. All right. So if you'd like to know more about our product, you can also book your free demo. You can either get back to us by writing at info@greytip.com, or you can also give us a call back. So with this note, I'm going to end my demonstration. Thanks for your time, and over to you, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rashmi. And I think new times demand new products and development in all the fields, and even especially technology. But that being said, thank you very much. I want to quickly move on and start the discussion. And I think my first question, rather my opening statement from all of you, what I want to understand is, can you help me identify the recovery curve for MSMEs at this point in time, and also help us identify what are the needs of small scale business owners at this moment, and how do they adapt to the changing digitization? I'm going to move on to Mr. Kamal sir first. Kamal sir, can we quickly have your opening statement? Sir, you're on mute. You're on mute.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think whenever we talk about recovery from COVID, so the first thing came in mind when the vaccine is coming. So now a lot of positivity, we are hearing from various countries, from various pharma companies. So I think the first thing in my view about the recovery is that as soon as the vaccine comes, that's the positive thing we assume. Then the implementation and priority of the implementation of vaccination, like what is required, to first to be revived. Government has those set the priorities. So as far as the SME is concerned, the bottlenecks which they have faced during the COVID is one is the migration of their population, industrial workforce. So unless and until the industrial workforce get the vaccination fast, or otherwise if there is no vaccination, they get the confidence so that they can return to the work. So in my view, there's the first part, the recovery part, if it is happening.
Sure. Okay. Moving on with that thought, can we move on to Manu sir? Sir, anything you would like to add to that and make your statement?
Sure, Tanya. So, Tanya, I would say infrastructure and finance is the most important tool, where in addition to the industrial workforce, what the fellow panel Kamal mentioned, that's very important, because if they don't get any support from the government, like government is having a lot of schemes, a lot of PLIs are coming up. Government is changing a lot of service export management facilities and services. But it is very, very important to give them support on the finances and infrastructure. See, it's like a vicious cycle. If the employer is not able to make money and he has to pay all the rentals, all the taxation, all the finances, then everything boils down to his revenue and the top line. Now for the revenue and for the top line, he needs the workforce. Now, which is interlinked. If the workforce is not there, he's not able to produce anything. If he's not able to produce, he's not able to sell. He has his rentals, his sales have dropped down, his recoveries from the market is stuck. So overall, I would say things like workforce, finances, infrastructure, and some credit line support from the government has to be looked upon. I know it is easier said than done.
Yeah.
I know it is easier said than done, but that volume is huge. So all this transaction can't happen in one day. It can't happen in.
So how do we identify who we reach out to first? How do we map them down sectorally? Is there a way to do it sectorally?
Absolutely. See, you have to look at it from a perspective that suddenly we can't become a manufacturing economy. We were never a manufacturing economy. We were always a consumer economy. Let's understand. Yeah. And suddenly we are saying, oh, we have a lot of schemes for farmers. And today also we know there's a lot of agitation happening around in Delhi. But suddenly things will not change in one day. It will take its own time. So we have to support the manufacturing guys in a different way, support the export services in a different perspective. We can't have one. See, today one shirt will not fit all. Rolling out schemes, rolling out one PLIs is not going to help. Government may have phenomenal schemes, but where we are lacking as a team, we all are part of it, even I am a part of it, execution is lacking. So it has to be addressed. Like if we identify the manufacturing segment, we need to give them a different relief. If we identify the export services, whether it is software exports or whatever the exports we are doing, we need to have a different relief for them. For workforce, we have to give them a different solutions. So it can't be that one solution can't fit all, because my needs are different, my liabilities are different, my customer base is different.
Fair enough. I think
I would like to, Tanya, add 2 points which Manuji has beautifully explained. See, we should also see the construct of our businesses and the regional, balancing of SMEs, where the SMEs are concentrated. Either they are in the raw material areas where most of the industries are there, or where the high consumption. And the another important critical aspect of our economy, when to extend the financing part to them, is that 50% of our micro SMEs, MSMEs, if you talk about, are unregistered.
Yeah.
And during,
how do you address that?
Exactly. So I'm coming to that. So in fact, if you talk about the traders parts, like in day-to-day markets, we buy a lot of goods for essentials and some need-based garments, etc. Look at those businesses. There are 7 crore traders in India. Out of it, roughly 50% are registered with GST and rest are unregistered. To my knowledge so far, there is not even a single package from the government is announced to the traders. And it is very visible and evident in front of all of us, wherever we are living, whether in a village or a town or a metro. We always see that one shop has at least 1 to 2 employees who are assisting the shop owner. So if 7 crore registered shops are there, which means they are employing at least 15 to 25 crore in that range of people.
Right.
And the online business, they have taken away their pie of sales revenue. So they are the worst hit in the current time. One, because of the migration of the labor. 2, because they are not getting finance, because they don't have ratings. They don't maintain financials. They are the informal segment. They are not eligible to get loans from banks. So the government has to first build a database and for a recovery perspective, that how many GST registration has been withdrawn. Should tell the district level trade association or the district level shop and establishment authorities to make a data of unregistered guys, and then start allocating finances through maybe SPV, if not banks, or maybe through NBFCs or microfinance institutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think very well said. I think that is the plan we probably should work out on, and we will talk about the challenges that the government also faces in terms of execution, because Manu sir also said it's the execution that is the key, and we will come back to you on that. But please allow me to move on to my next panelist for now. Can I have your thoughts, Mr. Ganpati, on this? And you can obviously build on from what has already been said.
Sure. No, sure. And I think, look, thank you. Look, I think at CreditWatch, we look at data insights in a very extensive way, right? And I think to Kamal's point, what's very interesting when you look at GST data, for example, there are just 1.5 million entities with a turnover of 1 crore and above, right? As per GST, there are just 9 million entities that are registered with GST. Whereas if you look at the government statistics, they say there are 65 million business entities, right? So that's the landscape that we're talking about, where there are many of these micro enterprises are, if you're less than 1 crore, then, I think the important thing is to kind of build scale and create, larger kind of enterprises, right? I think the best example to look at is when you look at countries like Germany or, some of the other developed countries. If you look at Germany, for example, their definition of a MSME, what they call Mittelstand, at the upper end, it's, you could have a turnover of euro $1 billion, euro 1 billion, and you're still a medium enterprise, right? And they kind of contribute 68%. And the way they've gone about doing this is, as a country, you kind of identify. See, I think to Kamal and Manu's point, while consumption is important for us, right? But it's very clear that India, at a whole, we are still a very poor country. So the way out for us is to kind of export, right? I'm not saying necessarily that we have to export manufacturing. We've established, in services, for example, that we've been a large exporter of IT services. I think it's important that we kind of identify some of these key sectors and then actually build out a plan at a national level in terms of what we're going to promote. And what the government's job should be is to just help enable, create scale, right? And so one of the things that we are solving for is, to try and reduce the friction cost that exists in lending. So today, the cost of borrowing for a SME, you don't need a government guarantee to kind of ensure that the cost of borrowing comes down. If you actually digitize and leverage formalization that's happening, you can actually reduce friction costs that exists in terms of, how you open accounts, how you manage your loan processes, etc., and the NPAs, to actually enable more risk-based pricing and a better interest rate as well, right? So these are all things I think that we need to kind of look at and then work out a solution.
Do you think there is one country-specific model that India also could, walk on and create an economy like Germany, as you said, or China, or China actually, because I think a lot of it has been imbibed from the way China runs as an economy. So is there any country we should look up to? Is there a plan of action that we can follow to do that?
So, my preference is that we should look at China as a model because, if you look at China, right, there's a lot of government, investment that is fueling the whole thing, right? So it creates its own inefficiencies and challenges. I think we should, when we think of Atmanirbhar as well, I think it's extremely important that we don't talk about protectionism under Atmanirbhar, but we are actually kind of trying to make ourselves self-sufficient and self-reliant, right? You should enable companies to compete at scale at a global level. And you don't kind of necessarily do that by saying, you protect them initially. You give them a level playing field. I think as Manu said, the best infrastructure, give them subsidized interest rates so that the capital cost is comparable to whatever it is elsewhere in the world, and let that happen. And you can look around, right? In the last 5 years, the China's contribution has kind of reduced, but if you look at how Vietnam, Bangladesh, for example, right? Who would have thought that Bangladesh per capita would have, surpassed India?
See, you're right. Tanya, I'll take a jump in middle just to add one point. It's an interesting point which Mr. Ganpati mentioned. See, we are taking things on an emotional perspective. One thing I would say, business are not runs on emotions. Yes, that's a different angle altogether. When you are team building, leadership, that's a different paradigm. But when you create infrastructures or when you have money going out in the market, we have taken Atmanirbhar that, we will cut off from the world and we will become suddenly one big giant in one day. See, let's take an example. Like over the period of 45 days, I'll take case an example of consumer goods. Like we racked up the duties on air conditioners to even 50%, 70%. Suddenly it went to 100%. It went to 200%. Now it is stupid rating a duty on 200% and now you block the import. Now imagine the people who are working. Imagine the kind of an ancillary unit which is working. Everything is on a halt. Like today when we are talking about technologies, like we have to understand today government is supporting to put an SMT line, the manufacturing lines. So if you bring the automobile segment, see, you name any big giant of the automobile, they are all leaving India. Why are they all leaving India? If government now is opening up and giving relaxation on duties on the CKD format. Earlier, government was giving rebates on the import duties. So I'm sure other colleagues will also add, but what a good point with Mr. Ganpati said that finance and even Kamal mentioned that it will take its own time. So one answer may not fit, but yes, we have to take Atmanirbhar in a more realistic and a more business format, not in an emotional format. Let's not let our emotions run the dollar or the money or the Indian rupee.
Absolutely. I do agree with that. And thank you so much, Manu sir, for adding that. Can I move on to Ajay sir now? And sir, have your thoughts. I think you've heard all the panelists. So do you agree? Do you disagree? And how do you really see the recovery curve? U-shape, V-shape? Is there a definitive answer to that?
I would like to take this in different perspective. If you see the Indian growth rate, Since 2017, we are seeing a decline in our growth rate. And if you see the last quarter of 1920, it was hardly 4.2% as per the government data. So we were already, our economy was contracting, our slowing down pre-COVID also. Now post-COVID, it was, are you able to hear me?
Yes, there was a bit of a glitch.
So if you see post-COVID, if you see the post-COVID situation, of course, the first quarter we have seen almost 23% contraction in our economy, and it was as per the formal sector. We don't know what was the situation of the informal sector, which contributes to the 98% of the MSME sector. And already they were shut down, and economy, if you take it on practical aspect, it has already contracted by almost 40-45%. And then all the forces, all the stakeholder comes, and you talk about Reserve Bank of India first jumped into action, and interest rate was brought down to almost, if you talk about CRR, it was brought down to almost 4%, so that funds can be made available to the corporates and SME at a very softer rate of interest. And later on, government also jump into action, whereby you have seen some policies already, has been declared, whereby 3 lakh crore rupees have been attributed to the MSME sector. Having said that, you need to understand, we have to difference in formal sector and formal sector. Now, there are already efforts for those informal sector companies to move formal sector. If a promoter is moving from informal sector to sector, and they prefer to take the benefit of taxation or want to run their businesses on the taxation model, no one can help them. So it is their fault. They need to move to the formal sector to enjoy the benefits that has been given by the government and various financial institutions, or even financial institutions, whatever you can talk about. As far as the model is concerned, if you talk about India since independence or even prior to that was a cash-based country. It was not a credit-based country like Germany, or you talk about Europe, or you talk about America, etc. So we require a transformation. Still, if you see, we are not much. Most of the promoters, if you talk to them, they don't like to take debt funding. Okay, they want to run their businesses with their own funds or with the accruals that the business earns. So the major problem, what I think in our country, is that there is a lack of financial literacy among the minds of the promoters. And unless until we are, and let me tell you, recently SEBI has said that literacy has moved to 80-85% in India, but financial literacy is still 25%. But I think when they talk about financial literacy, they are talking about basic finance, where you know about the banks and all those things. But when you talk from the business perspective, I think it's hardly 1% or even 0.5%.
So training in that area could really help. And who would be the players who would actually help out in training?
Let me tell you, everyone has to play the role. In fact, the chartered accountants, the company secretary, and everything. And everybody has to move on to the field. Unfortunately, everybody wants to run everything from the AC cabin. That is not going to work. People have to move to the field to educate the promoters. Okay, that what is the best financial practices that they should need to adopt. And at the same time,
strategy has to be in place.
Yeah, at the same time, we all need to push them towards the formal sector.
These are very, I'm sorry, but financial strategy is probably something that would work out for a startup like ours or people around in our
No, it's not like
how do you reach out to people from tier 3, tier 4 cities and do that?
No, Tanya, I would like to differ from you. So any business, all sorts of business are startup business only. A startup word is used to make it a buzzing word. Okay, so as to attract the people. Whoever starts the business is a startup business. So in fact, this financial literacy to be given to all the promoters, all so start the provisional planning to run the business. That's number one. Having said that, as far as now, you have also asked about the recovery. We have seen, post lockdown, we have seen a recovery. thing got up and we've seen a fast recovery in all the businesses. Okay, we have seen the GST almost crossing 1 lakh crore rupees in the month of October. So I with the opening of more and more recovery economy, and maybe in the financial year 21-22, again you may come to the positive number, and even this may not be beyond 6%.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughts there. Let's move on to another aspect of it. And Manu sir, I'm going to move on back to you there. I think your idea about creating infrastructure and helping out with infrastructure as a primary is something that I really resonate with. And I think that would be one of the biggest challenges that MSMEs might be facing. But let's talk about job creation. You also spoke about that briefly in one of your answers. And, micro enterprises in India are said to create 11% jobs only, which is very, very significantly less than a lot of other developing countries, where the rate goes up to 30 to 40%. Now, let's talk strategies in terms of how do we bridge this gap?
Okay, see, from a strategy perspective, the first thing is very, very important is to create a market and an outlet as a revenue. See, as an employer, I can say in books that I need to hire 100 people. I want to enhance the job employment rate from 11% to suddenly 12%, and all these softwares and people will give me the solutions. But the foremost important is to create a market for consuming that product. So when MSMEs are into the segment, whether they are into the apparel industry or they are into the toy industry, so we need to create a market for that consumption. Once for the consumption, the production ramps up. And for production, I need to enhance my employment, because everything is like a cycle. So once I know that, okay, I have to expand my factory, or I have to set up my second assembly unit, or I have to make a separate line. I'll give you a very different example. Like, everyone was having tough time. So one of my dear friend, he is a big exporter, and they're supplying to Zara, they're supplying to H&M and John Lewis in US. All these names are international. They were not able to get the supplies from Vietnam and Indonesia. Very surprisingly, he had to call his labor force from his village, and they run their institute and the factory set up in Noida and Greater Noida continuously for 7 to 10 days, non-stop. What he did, he took an extra effort because it was a pandemic time, so he ensured that he has made a small room and taken care of all the hygienes. But that is not scalable. He got a good order, which is like a decent margin and 3-digit dollars and $1 million. But that's a one-off opportunity. It is not scalable. So from a long-term perspective, we have to work on the infrastructure where MSME owners, we need to work on the lending rates. We need to work on the microfinancing, where that pressure on mind is not there. And the pressure on mind is to be recovered from the revenue I generate from my company. Because the pressure is that whether I generate revenue or not, I have to be liable to pay the money, which is fine. Yes, you have to ensure that the money should not get diluted. So it gets related back, because at the end of the day, no one is going to work for charity. Even when you talk to the employers, from an employee perspective, employee would say that, oh, if I'm not getting money, I will not work. And the moment you go out of metros like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, the moment you are in remote markets, there is a lot of labor which is working as skilled labor and unskilled labor. Their money is accounted or is not accounted. So that support on infra and finance and the market is very, very important. The consumption has to be there.
Fair enough. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Kamal sir, anything you want to add to that? Any other strategies you would like to suggest? How do we really identifying the gaps, and how do then we bridge them?
Yeah, so in fact, considering the construct and capital outlay in our country, we know that 80% of the total capital of the country is allocated to primarily 3 sectors, which is your financial, banking and financial sector, your energy and metal sector, and the domestic services, right? And practically, we all know that majority of capital allocated to these sectors is bad debt, has already been written off. We can see the position of banks. So we can see the position of energy and metal companies, like huge debt, correct? So now it is very important, if you want to create jobs with a regional balance, in a country like India, then you have to government has to allocate more capital to value creation segments. And which are those value creation segments are like your healthcare segment, your supply chain, right? Agriculture, right? And we should not forget that because of the COVID, the unemployment rate has gone up from 8% to 30%. So now how this gap has to be bridged besides the normal job creation. On top of it, the kind of automation and the digital adoption index has grown in India in last 5 years. We are the second place in the world in digital adoption.
Now, though, it's growing even multifold, with the government also stressing it as one of the pillars of the new economy.
And you may see more job loss because that is the fear now which is spread out. But practically, this automation will not, though on one part there may be some jobs may eliminated, like in financial services where I come from. Certain mundane jobs like operations or a low ticket credits, those may be automated through scorecard. But on the same time, the digitization or the automation will create new jobs. So what government needs to do in that? The first thing is that they should create a digital ecosystem where, based on the automation, they can create some knowledge-based course to the existing workforce, so that the another 40 to 45 million workforce can adopt those technologies and continue with their job. In the new segments like delivery, Amazon, how many delivery boys are there? Swiggy, right? So these platforms, which are customer facing platforms, digital activities and digitization, huge amount of job creation which will happen through digitization, and the figure is not less. It is close to 60 million jobs.
But sir, if you talk about Amazon and Swiggy and customer facing jobs, I think a lot of delivery robots are also going to take it on those jobs. I think they are very entry level jobs, and digitization might strike them first.
No, but in rural, do you think people are so educated? Because our 80% plus population is living in India, and we are a poor, I should not say poor country, but we are, struggling to increase our per capita income. So robotic delivery and all that may be in 5% or 7% of the total game in selected cities. And maybe it may be largely on B2B, not B2C, right? And the another part on job creation, while bringing back on the recovery side, how the government can do. For example, we all live in metro cities. If a marriage happens in a large banquet where there is a gathering of 3,000 to 4,000 people, how many people got employment on that day? Minimum 100 to 200. And in those kind of marriages, the family who are the party to both the marriages, they tend to buy multiple, dresses. They spend like freely. But today, because of the constraints, it has been restricted. The gathering is 50%, 100%. So those temporary jobs also gone away. So in summary, the government has to rethink about the reallocation and proportion of capital and move a substantial capital from those three sectors to these upcoming sectors which are creating value.
Fair enough. That I agree.
See, Tanya, to your point, from job creation, and he rightly said, I'll add one more to it, like service as a category is improving. Now, whether you talk about home delivery, whether you talk about when we are saying a bridging of digital and with the local traders, it's a very important aspect of making it hyper-local now. Hyper-local. That is very, very important. And that is where the automation and digitization and creating new job structures will be helpful.
And that's where, sir, my biggest concern is how, when we talk about making things hyper local, how do we reach out to those little small vendors? Now there is a huge retail war going on between Amazon and the Reliance group. And how do you, everybody wants the share of this $1 billion market that we are a part of, that India is actually going to produce. So how do you encourage those small vendors?
That's a different fight. I think we should not get bothered with that fight, because see, that fight is like more of a media marketing fight. Even I'm a media guy and we all respect media. It's not about against media. It's like, oh, let me ask my big brother. It is not even affecting the small guy who is giving the supplies to the Amazon. Let's imagine, like in a local encatchment area when all this pandemic was happening, People were taking multiple jobs. People were taking multiple jobs with Zomato, with Swiggy, and even with the local courier services. Like today, like the porter services is coming up. Like logistics in India will improve like anything. Service industry will improve like anything. Outsourcing in India will improve like anything. See, we have to understand, in the last 5 years, I think I have big financial stalwarts here with me, but these segments like retail, segments like telco, and the segment like online was the one which was really driving the economy on the double digits. And suddenly that has taken a major hit. Now, when that has taken a major hit, we are completely lost. Oh, suddenly we say the health is the biggest segment. Suddenly we say education is a big segment. Everything was existing. Everything was existing. It's just like one thing which he really pointed that it has to be a right proportion. Now the time has gone that the one shirt will not fit all. It will not fit.
Absolutely. And we have to have different strategies.
Like
for
we have
everyone.
to change. So-called our Bharat Ratnas have to change. Now that Bharat Ratnas can't be those 5 or 6 names. Sorry, with all due respect. Yeah, it has to change.
Absolutely. It has to.
On this, Tanya, I had one input here. Like you rightly mentioned, how to reach out those vendors. So if you recently heard the Prime Minister that try and lend to the street vendors, right? Because they are also a very big part in India.
Yes.
The government, especially for traders, have recently developed one e-Bharat portal. So Bharat portal, the purpose of e-Bharat portal is to aggregate all the traders who are part of registered under trade unions or maybe the GST or even not registered with GST. They can sell their product through e-Bharat portal. So it's a very new concept which government has thought of, but I am sure over a period of time, government can boost it through some other incentives or other things. And you will see over a period of 5 to 7 years, even a local Kirana guy may be part of e-Bharat portal and deliver services.
Fair enough. I think, that is definitely a good move. Let me quickly move on to Mr. Ganpati. And sir, your thoughts, you've heard a lot.
Yeah, I've been absorbing. Maybe I'll just pick on some of the threads that they were talking about, and then I'll add to their points. I think, look, the first one that I want to kind of talk about is what Ajay made in terms of the financial awareness itself. In fact, it's very interesting. When the lockdown was in place, we kind of did a survey among the SMEs as well, and one of the things that emerged out of it were two critical things, right? And one, the awareness itself. If you look at when you kind of think about financial awareness, it's not just in terms of capital structure, but the government itself has a multitude of schemes, right? You have a partial guarantee scheme versus a fully guaranteed scheme. The ability of these people to understand that is limited. And second, obviously, is the whole primary concern on demand itself, right? But I think to add on, right, and one of the challenges that we have in India is some of the constraints that we create because of government regulation itself. It is because people don't want to kind of come under the ambit and they see an advantage in remaining informal, right? They don't want to have more than 20 employees, for example, because then you come under a whole set of new rules. So people don't mind kind of creating 3 units of 20 or 19 each versus having 1 unit of 60, which gives them scale to do so many things. So I think these are things that we kind of need to address as well when we kind of look at some of the structural challenges that we have. And the third aspect is in terms of, leveraging digitization itself, right? So what's essentially happening is,
how do we really do that?
Yeah, it's unbundling production from distribution. So earlier, for example, think about it this way. One aspect, right? India has so many unique works of art and artistry, right? Rajasthan kind of comes with different types of dyes and prints to interesting forms of clothing. Right near Bangalore, you have Chennapatna, which makes toys. Now, all these entities have primarily focused on a very local market. But when you kind of bring digital platforms to them, right? Think about, what Alibaba did to China, right? So they did not necessarily allow them to sell within China, but effectively you kind of opened the whole globe for them, right? So then you don't necessarily need to think, Karnataka, you don't necessarily need to think Rajasthan. but the whole world is your oyster, right? I mean, I think that's the way we need to kind of think about these things very strategically and create these scales, right? I mean, also which and then it kind of leads to a whole different set of positive ramifications.
Sure. Thank you very much for those thoughts, sir. Mr. Thakur, sir, your thoughts?
I will like to see it in two parts. And earlier it was not being talked. One part is India, another part is Bharat. And in this pandemic, Bharat has saved the whole India. Okay, if you see the rural sector, in this pandemic, the rural sector has seen a very positive and vibrant growth, and because of which the India was stable, India was recovering, and a lot of jobs got created in the rural sector. So these things are going to teach us a lot of lesson. Okay, we need to ensure that we should not only concentrate our focus only in tier 1 city, but also in tier 2, tier 3, and in the rural sector. Unless until we start focusing in tier 2, tier 3, and the rural sector, I don't think this country will be able to create a lot of employment. I don't think this country is going to have a double-digit growth. That's one thing. Second thing, digitization, or what we talk about, e-commerce and all those things, it has filled a gap little bit. But still, if you see the unemployment data pre-COVID, it has touched almost 8% or 8.5% as per the government calculation. It may be more than that also, I don't know. Now the problem is that if the unemployment is going up, it means that the vacuum that has been created has not been filled. And why this vacuum has been created? Because those sectors which were the biggest contributors to the employment has not done well. And which were those sectors? Infrastructure, that's number one. Real estate, steel, logistics, and manufacturing sector. And they are the biggest job creator. These things have not performed well. And we need to have a vibrant economy. And for that, we need to have a biggest push infrastructure, real estate, steel sector, manufacturing sector, and logistics sector. Unless until we push a lot on that, and besides that, somewhere we have missed agriculture sector for quite long. If you see and if you compare
and
between
the irony
1947,
being that we are an agrarian economy.
No, let me tell you one thing more. If you calculate the salary of a teacher from 1947 till now, and you calculate the salary of a whatever the farmer earning, you will find that farmers are almost earning nothing, and that's why you are seeing a lot of suicides happening. So I don't think this country can afford losing farmers. Okay, they are the biggest contributor, and the way the rural sector has performed in this pandemic, I think we all need to focus there. Now let me tell you, government has got lot of schemes for the agriculture sector. It's not like that it is not there, but the problem is that again illiteracy. Unless until we will have the people who can handhold these guys, okay, and try to take those incentives that has been given by or that has been brought by the various government schemes since for quite long. I will not say just now, but for last 20 years, 30 years, etc. I don't think we will be able to create huge employment in the country. We have got demographic dividend. We have the youngest population. And that's why you have seen the fatality rate lowest in our country. Okay, so we need to leverage these things, whatever is the positive. As far as all those things that whether we are saving our corporates and all those things, or Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think people have not been able to understand it properly. I think what the government has done, if you see, government is going for privatization. It's a total U-turn from when nationalization was there. Now we are going for privatization. It means that we are calling the foreign companies also to establish their business, and at the same time we also want our corporates, our business people to compete with them and create the best of the products. Again, another thing, if India has to grow fast, we have to contribute into the export. We have negligible contribution into the export market, let me tell you. unless until we are going to produce world competitive products and go into the international market, I don't think we are going to survive. And all those things will go on toss. So I think all these things have to come at one place, and then only you will see the country growing.
Fair enough, fair enough. Very rightly put, sir. Thank you very much. And now that I see that we have time for just one more set of questions, so let me just kind of, combine a few things and sort of ask all of you, if you could help me identify what challenges at this point in time are the authorities facing in terms of creating strategies and also distributing the emergency capital that has been promised, and also incorporate your closing remarks for the session. So I'll go to you first, Manu sir, and we'll go line by line then.
Okay. So touching on the piece of word called emergency capital, I would say execution is the key. Money should reach the right hand and the last mile. That is taking a lot of time. Certain segments it's reaching, certain segment it is not. One. Secondly, yes, there is a very strong positive outlook. Everyone still looks India as the top 1, 2, 3 economy. And in the next 5 years and the decades or so, India will be there because of the numbers and the size and the talent. Most important is the talent that we have. I think we are trying to change a lot of gears. We need to give it time. We need to give the patience for things to be executed. All the things are rightly said in terms of finance literacy, Sone ki Chidiya, then growing economy. We all understand that, and I'm sure we all are contributing to it. But everything will happen at its own pace of time. Suddenly it can't change. So we need to give it time. We need to have the right execution on the ground. We should ensure that the things starts happening on the ground, and we will see the change happening. Like one good example, just adding on to it, like the consumption of all the automobile and the lot of consumables, like leaving the necessities, was high in rural segment because they were using it for their need. In India, it was in the urban metros, it was more on the luxury and the market that was moving. So there was a redundancy in that because the disposable income was not there. So I think the execution at the right place, having customized solutions for different segment, is what is the key for way forward. And definitely we are the growing and the upswing technology because we consume very fast. We have money also, we have good talent, and we have multitaskers also at the end of the day to deliver it.
Yeah. Any one line closing remark that you'd like to add for the session as well?
See, I would say that it's a multitasking, talented, growing economy, and we see the future, and we will make a place in the overall international exports in the international markets. We are there. We are reaching there.
And how do you just kind of foresee a milestone year? Because I think a lot of I don't want to sound too political here in this discussion, but a lot of the policies of our current government seem very far-fetched, which I do appreciate in some sense. But yes, they are very far-fetched. So
see, that's the challenge.
Milestone here in that sense?
No, so the milestone is say like small economic zones are coming up. Like I myself a part with certain forums. I'll not share the names, but the point is, let's take Hyderabad as an example. I think that's a very good example in the past coming years. Like you have an automobile guys going there, you have technology guys going there. Similarly, like the way the North India is coming up in terms of media city and all those things. So far-fetched milestones are great, but small executions like Jewar Airport is now one big target spot in front of every one of us. If we see things coming up, if we start exports from there, similarly we have Hyderabad, similarly we have Chennai taking care of the things down the line. Similarly, we do certain things for Nepal and other markets with the landlocked approaches. So different segments will open up things. And I'm sure different respective state guys are doing it and everyone is trying hard. So slowly it will happen. We will not be able to see the results in 1 year. It will take time. Like it will be a more long U curve. It can't be a V curve. To your point, it is going to be a long U curve, but yes, it will shine back because all things are now happening over a period of time.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, sir. I will move on to Kamal, sir. So your thoughts and closing remarks.
Yeah, so, I have a different view. So the government, in my view, has to do away with the incremental thinking. Like, so you can't deal with such a large problem with fixing, stocks, one by one, or maybe if something comes up first, then you fix that, and then other thing fix that. So the government has to, remove its fear factor and, work as take a strong step if really we want to come out as a great nation and a Atmanirbhar nation. Currently, we may have read and see on TV also that government is printing money, like just to curb and fund that. But do you really think that is the right approach? Why government is afraid of raising debt? So if the government raised debt, the risk of inflation is the fear maybe. But we have seen, country has seen 13-14% double-digit inflation. Right. So my view is that the government should take bold steps, raise debt, and instead of like fixing small things, like for example, government has allocated provident fund, people who are registered with PF, then you're addressing a small portion of population because your majority of small scale industries, your MSMEs are unregistered. So what will happen with those guys? So first of all, the hurdles, I think, which in my view, which are apparent in front of the government is one, they don't have the data of the unregistered SSIs and MSMEs. Two, they are not taking that bold step. Instead of giving indirect benefits without releasing cash from the government treasury, they are taking indirect methods. Rather, they should fund directly 6 months to 1 year salaries to micro units. And they for unregistered people, what they need, you can fund their house rent if people who are on living, or you can arrange food at least, which government has done in some cases for maybe 6 to 12 months. So those things are very critical and important because Mr. Ajay has rightly said that large portion of our industries are in rural.
Yeah.
And talk about MSMEs, 6.53 crore SMEs are there, out of which 90% are micro, which are less than 5 crore turnover as per the new definition, and out of which 60 to 70% are unregistered, and they produce 6,000 products, right, and contribute 11%, 10 to 11% in GDP, that segment. So how you are going to address that is a major challenge in my view, which Mr. Manu had said, ki execution is the key. But for execution, the data is the key.
Right, absolutely.
Who you want to help, you first know that.
Yes.
So whom you want to help, you first know that.
Yeah.
So that I think the government should do. And second part, on the banking side, like the hurdle which the government is facing in implementation is that government has allowed moratorium. It's a complex process. Instead of that, maybe you can suggest to the relevant authority that they can simply extend the tenure, all the tenure of the term loans by 3 to 5 years, and ask the bank to recast the repayment schedule and offer a step-up EMI where for 2 years he should pay only interest. Because unless and until your cash flow is moving into the business, you can't run the business, you can't generate employment. And majority of the problem today in business is that large portion of the cash flow which the businessman is getting from his own sources or maybe raising through private debt is in the repayment of the banks to save his account, to maintain his account as a standard account. That is the one part. The second part of the execution problem is that to raise a debt from bank, you need to be rated. So the rating is another monster in, extending the credit facilities.
Yeah.
The government has to come out with a special purpose vehicle, whatever the law says, and then get the data and then execute it. It may take 2 to 3 years from now.
But I think that's a fairly decent approach, sir. I think identification and then execution also would be really helpful at this point in time. But thank you very much for sharing those thoughts, sir. Can I quickly move on to you, Mr. Ganpati, and have your thoughts and also your closing remarks?
Yeah, no, I think, look, in terms of your first question, right, and I mean, the challenges around the emergency capital itself. I think, look, the execution, I think the biggest constraint was that they kind of said that it's available only to the existing borrowers of the banks. I think that's a very limited space, right? I mean, I think, in fact, one of the things that we are doing is actually, and to Kamal's point, we actually have trust scores. I mean, there's so much of formalization that's happened, and you can actually use data to get very comfortable with newer entities as well. So ideally, if they had opened it beyond the existing set of borrowers, because the existing set of borrowers are just 4.85 lakhs, I think, is a number that they spoke about, which is a drop in the ocean when you kind of look at the overall numbers that you have of MSMEs, right? And I think that's where they could have opened up the program a lot more, and then people would have seen the benefit. Because if you look at utilization right now, it's around 60%, and the 40%, at least the feedback we've kind of got through looking at data as well, is that primarily they don't kind of see prospects from a demand perspective as well, right? And so they don't really want to borrow just because it's being made available very cheap. Otherwise, overall, I think, look, I remain extremely positive about our native intelligence, right? I mean, I think India can adapt very fast. And who would have, imagined that you would have had a unicorn come out of Kottayam, right? I mean, and I think somebody made that point as well, that look, startup is a buzzword. I mean, any new company that is getting formed, and they could be MSMEs as well. Everybody's a startup. And, the interesting data that we see is, the number of new registrations in MCA, for example, it's actually back now to a record of 15,000 new companies every month, which I think is a positive thing. So I do think that, there is resilience and people will adapt and new things will come. My suggestion to the government is essentially, remove hindrances, right? I mean, if you kind of remove hindrances, then I think, people will find their way to kind of grow, and, we will prosper as a country.
Absolutely. Thank you
And
very much.
sorry, Tanya, just one point which is relevant. Recently, government has amended the labor laws. So they should ensure that it is implemented in a very fast-paced manner.
It should be implemented in a very fast-paced manner. Fair enough. Absolutely. Actually, that's a lot of a topic of a lot of discussions that we at ObserveNow also do with a lot of HR folks in the country, with the overworked workforce, and where we really are headed at the moment. But I think, yes, fairly good point. Thank you very much, sir. We'll move on to you, Mr. Ajay Thakur. And I think, sir, you have the last word here. So a quick roundup, a quick wrap up, your thoughts.
My thought is this, we need to create demand. Okay, we need to have supply and let the market forces play its own role. As a country, as a businessman, we can't afford to be the parasite on any government or anybody else and keep on waiting for the incentive or the subsidies. I have seen many companies getting busted because it has been formed on the basis of the subsidies that government have announced. Okay, so first of all, promoter needs to have a robust business plan. That's number one. That is very much required. Number two, India as a country and its promoters have lacked the vision. Unless until their promoters become visionary, alert, aware, self-reliant, and ready to create the best of the, ready to manufacture the best of the products or create best of the services, they can't flourish. These are very important tools. They have to adopt the best of the practices. For example, they have to bring digitization in their company. They have to use the best set of finances, both in terms of debt and equity. They need to ensure that they should not leverage the balance sheet too much. That is very much required. The third thing is that they should not go as per the herd mentality. Unless until these things are being brought by the promoters, I don't think anybody can help the promoters in prospering the business. If you ask me what I should look from the government, I should look from the government having the ease of doing business. Okay, everything should be transparent. If someone wants to start the business within 2 days, he should be ready to establish his business and complete all the documentation process, paperwork. He should get all the approvals in place within 7 days. Those things I require from the government. And besides that, whatever the government give us, that is a bonus. But from my side, I think the 90% or 95% responsibility is on me to ensure that I should take the business to the next level. And for that, I need to have a proper business plan. I need to be visionary. India can't afford to have lots of SMEs. We need to convert these small companies into medium companies and medium companies to large corporates. In India, still we lack number of large corporates with having such a huge population in the country. So we need to see that we should create large number of corporates so that a lot of employment can be created. We just can't afford talking about startups. In India, 35,000 startups are registered, but they have created only 3.5 lakh employment. So that's how the things is not going to work. We have to ensure that we can create large corporates, so that a lot of employment can be created, and the government should act as a facilitator with ease of doing businesses, and all these other laws like insolvency and bankruptcy law or labor laws. All those things should be implemented in the right spirit.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And I think you've left us on a very positive and a very thoughtful note here as well. We need to be progressionists in India at this point in time. Very exciting times for us. People are excited. The government is excited. There's a paradigm shift happening, and we are right at the cusp of it. And as you rightly said, Manu sir, I think it will take a little time. My assumption, 20 years from now, but I think we will definitely see an Atmanirbhar Bharat. The next generation is definitely going to grow in a very different economy and is going to experience.
Just last word. We have been talking about self-reliant Atmanirbhar for quite long. Now this is the time to realize and bring in practice to be really Atmanirbhar. Just by saying it will not happen, and for that you have to have a robust business plan, and you have to be tough, strong, and keep on going. That's it.
And absolutely. And I think the key here, as discussed by our panelists as well, is, identifying the people, creation of the database, creating strategies, implementing strategies, and then executing them rightly. I think this is essentially the line of framework that we should be running about. And such discussions definitely help in terms of a peer-to-peer interaction also, and in terms of, giving ideas to all of us as to how we should move on towards a better and a stronger economy. But that being said, thank you very much, all of you, for joining me today on this discussion. It was very fruitful. I personally learned a lot, and a lot of doubts in my head that I was having when I was preparing for this discussion, I think are now cleared out, and I am going as a very much more educated woman than I came onto this panel with. Thank you very much to all the attendees as well who joined us from various social media platforms as well. Thank you very much. And we will keep bringing, as an organization, ObserveNow, we'll keep on bringing interesting discussions and handpicked selected panelists like these to clear your doubts or need anything. You all have my email address. Please feel free to give me your feedback, your comments, and suggestions for the next set of people and the next discussion. Thank you very much. And thank you, attendees.
We wish ObserveNow all the best to keep on rocking with this.
All the best, and make your team big, create more employment.
Yes,
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes,
Perfect.
sir, that's the plan.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Thanks, everyone. Nice talking to all of you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks all.
Have a nice evening ahead, all of you. Thanks.
Same to you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, attendees, and I'll see you tomorrow in ObserveNow's one of the largest education summits of the year with our chief guest, Mr. Kapil Sibal. So please log in tomorrow at 4 o'clock for one of the most intense discussions. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.